it was just easy to coast. And then what I found in my mid to late 20s was this incredible, like a depression, like an incredible lack of attachment to anything like that was real or meaningful, because it was just so easy. There was no struggle that drew me out in any real way. And I found everything to be so meaningless, like in this kind of existential realization of like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why does this even matter? Why not do something more exhilarating and exciting, and had that kind of existential, moment of like, should I just become a bank robber? Like, should I do anything? None of this matters. It's all meaningless and insignificant. Why not try to do something amazing?
I'm Eric Lyson.
And I'm Lara Mitra.
And this is How I Got Here,
A podcast that captures the twists and turns of professionals' careers and how they figured out what to do next.
We are two business school students at MIT Sloan and former consultants who are looking for inspiration on how to navigate our own careers. We hope that these conversations also help you figure out what it is you want to do and how you'll get there.
On this episode, we interviewed John Harthorne, founder and former CEO of MassChallenge. MassChallenge is one of the most successful startup accelerators in the world. As of 2019, MassChallenge has helped almost 2,000 startups raise over $5 billion in funding, and those startups have had almost $3 billion in revenue. We had such a great interview with John, chock full of content, that we've decided to split it into two distinct episodes. In the first episode, this one, we'll hear about his winding and varied career choices and how he leans into struggle to find meaning and joy.
My name is John Harthorne. I am founder and CEO of MassChallenge most recently. But prior to that, I worked at Bain and Company. And prior to that, I was a Sloanee, graduated 2007.
And even before that, you really had a varied path to business school, right? When did you realize you had such an interest in trying out new things and moving around from one thing to the next?
Looking back, it's easy in hindsight maybe, but I think I was always kind of a classic entrepreneur. I had lots and lots of hobbies, but I would pick them up for a short period of time and then abandon them for something else. And so basically what I figured out, and I figured it out while applying to business school, was that I love the process of learning. I like the steep part of the learning curve, but once I understand how something works, I get bored more quickly as it starts to plateau, and then I want to find some other steep learning curve to jump on.
So how did this love of learning and finding the steepest learning curve influence what you decided to study and some of your early career choices?
Okay. I majored in German literature, minored in chemistry, was a varsity swimmer. And then you can see you can think of me either as a wayward soul or as a Renaissance man maybe, but I majored in German literature, minored in chemistry. Then I got a master's degree in European political culture. Then I was translating German to English, came back to the U.S., worked at the UN briefly I thought I was going to be a diplomat. So I got an internship really at the UN. Then I came back up to Boston and was translating automobile repair manuals from German to English. And then I started doing computer programming, and I switched jobs to a startup in Kendall Square doing computer security, working for financial services firms, and flew all over the world for Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and others, teaching them how hackers break in and steal stuff. And then I moved to Russia for a year with my wife, and I learned Russian, and I traveled around and did volunteer stuff and applied to business schools from there. Got into Sloan, which is where I really wanted to go. Came to business school, went to Bain after that, and then left Bain to launch MassChallenge. So you can see not a logical thread that ties all of those things together, but the key thing is that I love learning, and then I get bored pretty quickly.
And when you think about all these transitions that you have, did you ever have a hard time where you were like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to make this jump? And how have you gotten good at making that jump? I really like what you're saying is that's kind of your inspiration. But how did you end up finding that that's how you want to not be in comfort and actually go, and it's actually more rewarding to go do the next thing?
Honestly, I was kind of a drunk throughout my 20s, and I thought if I just party really hard, I'll find some joy and fun. And it doesn't really lead you there. Nothing that I did kind of gave me that joy. And so it was actually until I found struggle, I was unhappy. And so it's only with struggle that I have any association with kind of joy and meaning. So the change is actually necessary.
I think that might sound a little counterintuitive to some of our listeners, Sounds a little counterintuitive to me. How did you come to that realization?
Up until about 27, I was more or less coasting. Like I grew up with a pretty easy life. My family is, upper middle class. I grew up in the suburbs of Boston, had great vacations, never lacked for anything, had an awesome education. Everything was sort of coasting through. And there was always a belief, not even like almost a certainty that life would be easy and good. I'll never be poor. I never really struggled. I never had like real hardship, knock on plastic table. I never had any real hardship or like death or struggle in my immediate family. And so it was just easy to coast. And then what I found in my mid to late 20s was this incredible, like a depression, like an incredible lack of attachment to anything like that was real or meaningful, because it was just so easy. There was no struggle that drew me out in any real way. And I found everything to be so meaningless, like in this kind of existential realization of like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why does this even matter? Why not do something more exhilarating and exciting, and had that kind of existential, moment of like, should I just become a bank robber? Like, should I do anything? None of this matters. It's all meaningless and insignificant. Why not strive to do something grand? And it was that sort of realization of like, why not try to do something amazing? Because even if it's all going to be meaningless anyway, probably, but at least there's some joy and wonder in the moment of struggle and in the possibility of accomplishing something grand and big.
And so how did this philosophy of pursuing struggle in the face of meaninglessness influence your career choices? It seems like you tried a lot of different jobs and then somehow ended up in business school. How did that happen?
Like I said, when I decided to go to business school, largely because I felt like I had to reset my career. I thought I was going to be a diplomat. Originally went to the UN and realized, wait, this is all bureaucracy and paper pushing and following orders. Those are exactly the things I do not want to do. Like, I chose very unwisely. I will be terrible at this job, so I need to reset completely. But I didn't know anything about business because I was a humanities undergrad. So I was like, oh crap, I have to go to business school, basically. Like, I can't justify getting any good job that I want because I have no background in it. So, and I thought, well, I either want to go into like sort of senior management at big companies and be like a CEO and just make good money and have like, decision and control to some degree and some level and be working with cool, hot, interesting technology. Or I want to go and do startup stuff and create my own business and have the like excitement and lure of that. And so either way, I thought I should probably go through management consulting, which is a great path to ultimately become a CEO one day, especially strategy consulting more so than sort of operations or otherwise. So I had to go to business school, and I looked at all the schools, and MIT does super well on for consulting and for startups. So I thought, all right, I'll either go through a top consulting firm or I'll go and launch my own startup. And if I go to Sloan, then I'll have like immediate access to not just the Sloanies, but also the rest of the engineers on campus. There'll be great technologies, and I'll help to spin it out and stuff like that.
How did you balance these two very different things, pursuing management consulting and pursuing being an entrepreneur?
From the beginning was like, I'm all in on management consulting and all in on startups. So I found some engineers in new enterprises class that were working on a lung biopsy device that had some early like market validation from doctors that it was useful, basically, but it was a medical device, so still preclinical and all that stuff. They didn't know anything about business. I was like, I think I could write you a really good business plan. So we worked together and ended up winning the 100K. In the meantime, I got a summer associate role at Bain. So I did my summer there, which is like arguably the greatest job on the planet. You get paid good money. They don't work you hard at all. I think I built like 2 slides the entire summer. It was like a kind of a joke. Like in hindsight, I look back, I'm like, I can't believe they paid us to do that. It was like just a long sales gig, and got like sports tickets and whitewater rafting trips and all sorts of awesome fun stuff.
So after winning $100,000 for your startup, you turn around and go back into consulting. This seems a little strange because you talk about how you need this struggle to find meaning and joy, and this seems like the opposite. How did you end up making this decision to go from this hard, intense startup life to something a little bit easier, at least from your summer experience?
I was like, all right, I got to decide between startup and consulting. And the startup, we won the 100K and everything, but it's a medical device company. It's got clinical trials. The 2 engineers are PhD students in no rush to like launch anything. Nobody's going to let me start a medical device company. I have no experience doing FDA approval, all that stuff. So I realized that's not a viable option. It's also never was funded. It wasn't a really fundable startup, even though great business plan and it could have saved lives and been good, but it wasn't venture backable, and it just wasn't going to happen. And I didn't have any other amazing startup opportunities, a couple of peripheral opportunities, but I didn't believe in them really. And so I had an offer from Bain to go back, and I was like, look, it's a great salary, it's a good signing bonus, good salary, and then a good first year bonus. I'll go back, I'll go through the first big bonus, and then I'll leave and I'll figure out a startup in the meantime, and I'll leave and do my startup. I'll pay down my student loans and all that stuff. So that's what I did. But I graduated 2007, so first full year is December 2008, which is, collapse of the financial universe. So that was, the Dow is dropping hundreds of points every day, starting earlier in that fall and then going all the way through March 2009 when it hit bottom. So December of 2008 was the steepest part. That was like straight downward trajectory with no end in sight. Talk of like the next Great Depression, 10 years of loss. It was like a super dark time.
I can't imagine leaving a job during that kind of economic situation. Did you feel trapped to stay?
So it was a pretty hard time to leave, to be like, oh, I've got a high-paying job. I'm pretty good at it. I wasn't amazing, I don't think, but I was good at it. I wasn't at risk of departure, but I hated it by that point. And I think Bain's a great company. I'm just not a consultant. I had realized the methodology-driven nature of it, and I really, really wanted to leave. And I had kind of sort of promised myself I wasn't going to get sucked in and just like get the golden handcuffs, have me, keep me there until I'm in my like mid 40s. And then I look around, I'm like, what did I do with my life? I forgot my dreams.
How then did you make yourself make the move? Of course, you don't want to look back on your life and believe you forgot your dreams, but during the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, that seems like a good reason to stay, or the wrong time to make a career move, especially with something as secure as management consulting, which has, nice stability, high pay, and prestige, and then you're going to go to something unproven like a startup. How did you do that?
So I like forced myself to sit down and write a bunch of like executive summaries for possible startups that I thought would be fun, but they were all terrible. I couldn't come up with anything. I crumpled it all up and threw it away, and I was lying in bed like mid-December, angry at the world, and I was like, shit, that's it. I'm just a consultant forever, I guess. I don't know what, like, this sucks, and I'm probably going to die early because I hate my job, and I'm having ulcers already, and I'm kind of a grumpy husband, and I was had a young child at that point, and so I was just really bitter and angry and lying in bed at like 3-4 in the morning thinking, shit, I got to get up in like an hour and a half and go back to the office. This sucks. And then I was thinking, somebody's got to fix this. Like, it's too hard to start businesses. Like, I want to create a new business that will create jobs and growth. It's exactly what we need right now is more wealth, more optimism, more solutions to problems. That's how we're going to grow our way out of this hole we've dug ourselves into through greed. We got to like be more generous to people starting companies. Somebody's got to fix that. And then I kind of half fell asleep and woke up with this adrenaline like shot to the heart moment where I woke up like wide awake with this realization that I'm somebody. Why don't I do that? Why don't I fix it? I'll make it easier for people to launch new businesses. That's like the biggest problem in the world right now. And I went to MIT and I ran a conference on how to use catalytic events like competitions to promote entrepreneurial activity and bring communities together to create like all these great success stories. I'll do that. And if I do that at scale and sort of bring this MIT 100K model to the world, I'll get to see hundreds of great startups. So even if my competition doesn't work out, I can probably join one of them.
So after a lot of struggle, you found an idea that you were excited about and believed in. But then how did you make the jump to actually leave? Did you just quit Bain the next day?
Bain was offering at that point like a departure package for people willing to leave. So that was pretty generous. So I took I was like the first one in the office when they announced it. I was like, me, yep, I'm in. I want that right now. And so that was good for me. And I could still use Bain facilities for several months, still got paid for months. And all the while I was working on my new business plan and only skipped a paycheck, I think, really. It took me like realistically 5 months to build the plan and get to the first funding, but I was more or less paid that whole time. I had to do some work throughout there, but not too hard. Again, it was scary as hell, but I have to jump. It's the thing that I can't not do. And it's like a disease. This is the thing with entrepreneurship that you got to get. It's an incredible struggle. It is not easy at all. It is harder than consulting by a long shot. And it's way more personally difficult because it's all on you. You're stating how you want the world to change, and you're declaring to people that you're going to get it done. And the fear of not getting it, and it's improbable. that you will get it done, like highly improbable that you'll get it done to anything remotely resembling the vision that you have to espouse in order to get anybody else even remotely interested in supporting you. And so you're creating this intense paradox that you have to live within, and it's really terrifying and really hard. But for me, it just so happens to be the disease that I have to do that. I can't not do it, or else I become intensely bored over too long a period of time. It makes me feel worthless and like I'm just not contributing anything or doing anything valuable. And so I have to go and start something new.
To hear more of the nitty-gritty details for how John successfully started MassChallenge during the Great Recession, check out our next episode. We'll talk with John about how he managed to do that and why he's leaving MassChallenge years later to start something new. You can find more episodes of How I Got Here wherever you listen to podcasts. If you like this episode, please consider sharing. It really helps. Do you know the perfect person for us to interview next? Or do you want to be on the podcast yourself? Check out our website at howigotherepodcast.com. We'll be back with more episodes soon.